The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is picking all the lessons it can from the 2023 general elections and off-season polls recently conducted across the country. This comes as the Electoral Commission has proposed 142 reforms aimed at improving the country's electoral system, including using computer-generated voting slips for eligible voters who do not possess permanent voter cards, PVCs. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu says PVCs should no longer be the sole requirement for voting, especially with the introduction of the bimodal voter accreditation system, BVAS. Out of the 142 recommendations, 86 of such recommendations require actions by INEC itself. This is then followed by 48 recommendations that required action of a variety of stakeholders, including the National Assembly Security Agency's mobile network operators, statutory bodies, transport unions, civil society organizations, including we in the media. Well, to help us take a look at INEC's proposed reforms, we have joining us in the studio the chairman of the Partners for Electoral Reforms, Ezenwa Nwagwu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And also joining us is the Director of Elections at Connected Development, CSO Code, Emmanuel Njoku. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start with you, Ezenwa Nwagwu. I mean, wholesome reforms is what INEC is proposing, but some people are saying that these are not new, while others are saying that this is coming from INEC itself, having taken a critical look at what happened in the general elections and then the current off-season elections, fusing it with some of the demands that CSOs like you had been making over the years and some of the observations by federal lawmakers. How far-reaching are some of these proposed reforms?
Well, I think INEC is keeping up with tradition, really. After every election, whether it's 2011, 2015, 2019, there are reports, which takes a general look at the conduct of not just INEC itself, but the different stakeholders and how to improve the situation. So, immediately after the 2023 election, a lot of people were asking INEC to speak, but there are fallouts from the 2023 election. There are off-cycle elections to be conducted, which are also part of, some of them are also caught or that some are, as a result of people passing and all the rest of them. So it is now taking a broad sweep at, all that took place. For me, I've always thought that INEC perhaps does more introspection than many other stakeholders. After the Justice Uwais Committee report, there were recommendations. And the recommendations were, to different stakeholders. So the thing to look at is all the other stakeholders. How much have they implemented of the justice? But of that Uwais report, INEC has implemented close to 68 or 67 of the ones that affect them administratively. So how far-reaching? It will be the responsibility of the other stakeholders to also do some reflection. Security agencies need to also show us a report of what has transpired. How did they fare? The politicians themselves, through their political parties, in this particular case, the Interparty Consultative Interparty
Advisory Council,
IPAC, should be able to present a report. When we take all of this report, we have a multi-stakeholder understanding of what needs to happen going forward. And that, for me, is what it is. And I think that INEC does well to always sit back and reflect. Right. Reflection means putting a mirror before you. And you may not like what that mirror is showing, but at the end of the day, you want to adjust. You want to see how you look better in the future.
All right. So, and I bring you in, Njoku. One of the key proposals is the phasing out of the permanent voters card, PVC, saying that BVAS is already in place, so all you just need is a slip. You just go to, officials, and when you approach INEC officials, you do your thumbprint and all of that. It takes care of it. So it's not compulsory, but it's in the laws that you must use, PVCs and all of that. So how is INEC going to manage this system of phasing out this PVCs.
So why we don't have the complete details is just a bit of what the chairman said. I'm not sure he said about phasing out the PVCs, but I think what his intention is that the PVCs will be there, but the PVC will not.
People will no longer be required to get new ones.
The only requirement that you will need to be able to vote, and for me, is way to go. For me, that's positive. This is one of the key recommendations we made in our election observation 2020 election observation report to INEC.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, because a lot of citizens, I mean, the number of people who are in our voter register as at the last election was about close to 94 million, I think. We shouldn't be having the number of people we see that turn out to vote. We should have way more than that. Clearly, a lot of people do not vote because of how cumbersome the stress of getting what you call the permanent voter's card is. And you mentioned the Electoral Act. I'm not sure the Electoral Act said anything about permanent voter's card. I think the Electoral Card only spoke about voter's card. It's the INEC election guidelines that speaks about permanent voter's card. So based on this, I think is a positive way. Take, for instance, the flooding that just happened in Borno State. Do you know many people would have lost their PVCs because of that process? And we know to get a new PVC from INEC is a lot of stress. The whole insecurity happening in some parts of this nation have caused a lot of people to lose their PVCs. To get a new one is stress. More so, it's costly for INEC. Deploying youth corps, deploying ad hoc staff to go and be doing sharing of PVCs is completely not necessary. We've said this long before now. We are happy that INEC is taking this move. Citizens should be able to walk into a business center and print a voter's card. Importantly, the voter's card is designed by INEC, and when you print it, it will have the QR code, it will have the barcode, which just in case you are not able to be identified to vote with your thumbprint and your facials, the barcode or QR code with the BIVAS will be used to identify for you to be able to vote. So it is a welcome development. I think with this, we'll be able to have more Nigerians participate in the coming election. This is positive for me, and we're happy that INEC, amongst many things, are taking the positive steps to ensure that more people vote. Importantly, notice that INEC also just announced, I think last 2 weeks, that they are going to start their voter registration next year. I think early next year, February or so, 2025. Yeah. That is also very positive. There's no sense giving people a very limited window for people to vote. Election is the centerpiece of democracy. People above 18 years should be able to, you should make it possible for people to vote. In some crimes where we've been able to observe elections, the first key thing is that the system allows you to vote. Even if, for instance, the US election we just observed, even if on election day you've never registered to vote, the system will allow you to vote. If you walk into the wrong polling unit, the system, there is a provisional arrangement made for you to vote. So that everybody participates in election. This is positive, and really commended INEC on this.
All right, Ezenwa, we have Nigerians not paying attention to the electoral system and some of the reforms now, especially the political parties, until it's close to elections before they start making noise and, saying all sorts of things. How important is it for Nigerians to pay attention to some of these reforms? Because we have even diaspora voting being proposed by INEC, and then, of course, early voting by journalists like myself. I mean, I'm very happy about that. I will be able to vote before election day.
All of us.
I mean, well, including all of you who monitor elections and all of that. 142 reforms and all of that. Some by INEC, some by CSOs and all of that. So talk to us about some of the specific reforms.
Well, for me, the Sunshine Initiative that comes out will be the early voting, issue. That expands the democratic space considerably, capturing a whole chunk of, professionals who, just by virtue of the work that they do, are taken out of the voting. So that is expanding. The thing is that most times people do not know that even the electoral reforms that take place in the National Assembly, most times INEC and civil society push some of those issues even in the National Assembly. So the responsibility and the worry for me is that how we are not able to, why it is difficult for the National Assembly to turn electoral reforms into an industry.
What do you mean by an industry?
What is the thinking around simple issues about early voting?
Exactly.
We've done every legislative year, there is an electoral reform constitutional amendment. All right? Now, these issues are no-brainers. They are not things that are novel. They are things that even them have gone out to see that you need to do these things. Okay? So some of the responsibilities we even place on INEC is not INEC.
I was in South Africa myself
yes.
with some of the federal lawmakers, and they saw some of these things, people voting before
election. No, that is what I'm telling
but
you.
But when they come back,
so
you will
see the drama that will go around public hearings, do all those things, and then by the time the legislative year has ended, then we start de novo. We start afresh again. So we have to put an end to this and allow the things that we have also tested, that we have tried to gain roots in a way that we can see how much they are working. All of these inputs are just to expand the democratic space, to get our citizens who are qualified to vote to participate. And it's not rocket science. Then in many other places, immediately you have Beavers. Beavers had lived up to his reputation for checking voter identification theft, considerably so, because in all the elections that we have had, the data for Beavers has been impressive. It has performed nearly 98% in almost all the elections, and it has cut out the reasonably
fraudulent
in the election. So we just need to phase that out. There are reasons why we still have to do permanent voters card and all of that, and it is the politicians themselves who
I guess it's contracts for
the
people.
Yes, not just the contracts. The INEC chairman also alluded to that. Why do you need to go into this now? We have to go into that so that we can stop voter suppression, where people buy up PVCs just to make sure that in their opponents' area,
they weaken their chances.
They buy them up. So so you can buy anything. But again, we have to be nuanced in how we want to solve a problem, because the challenge for me in Nigeria is that anytime we are trying to introduce new things, we create more problems because of the nature and complexioning of our political actors, whose main determination is to subvert. So when you are going paperless, when you are trying to, you can now download and use what you download to go and vote. Please, Elon Musk, who has taken people to the moon, is even still saying, please do manual.
But it's still manual.
No, what I'm saying is that we need to be careful. We need to understudy that process and test it out.
Yeah, so because what INEC is just saying, that you go to its website, you just print out, and then you come and present. Can it be manipulated? Is that what you're afraid of?
I'm just saying that, see, you have knowledge prosecute everywhere. How do you do it in Nigeria? Everything that is done to improve things elsewhere, we corrupt here.
Okay,
interesting. So it has more to do with the attitude of our political class.
Yeah, because even Germany still uses paper.
No, that's what I'm saying. So it's the political class, and we are not putting their feet on the fire enough.
All right. In addition to what you want to add, I want to say that INEC is also saying that it needs legal clarity on some issues. One of them is results management system. They said they need clarity from the National Assembly on what should be done going forward with issues of IREV, results management, that's manual transfer versus electronic transmission of election results. How far-reaching should the National Assembly, focus on that?
So, our electoral process, like Mr. Ezenwa said, I think comparing the Ghana elections, the outcome and the participation and the attitude with the attitude of Nigeria, I think everybody will all have a role to play. From INEC, civil society, politicians, security agencies, voters, citizens themselves. We need to own Nigeria. We need to own it. We need to own the process. We can't all continue to run around the way we're running. I will not get any results. And that also comes to INEC and result management system. And then you are talking about the interests. The question you asked me before, people are not really showing interest, but towards the last minute, there will be a lot of noise and all of that. I'll agree. I don't know if Ezenwa will completely agree on this, but there was a bit of missed opportunity in the trust in this process that INEC lost that opportunity in the last election because of how the result was managed and how the IREV was managed. We are back to that conversation. But before we get people to get involved in this conversation, talking about attitude of Nigerians in the process, who has taken responsibility? What sanctions has been given to who because something went wrong. And what went wrong was a big deal in that election.
They say it was a glitch.
No, get my point. I agree that it was a glitch. But then, who has taken has sanction been given to who for that level of glitch? So, and you know, because people were so interested, and rightly so, because INEC chairman was such a great salesman in that 2023 election. He went to Chatham House. He was everywhere talking about the election. And what excited people the most was the fact that they can also follow that result electronically. And that in the presidential election didn't happen. It was a big deal. So before we move on, and also to get people to pick interest in the process, a process that I've lost trust in, you need to give sanctions to who it is due so that we can move on knowing that the closure has been put on this particular issue. I feel that's what we should do going forward.
I want you to also speak about manual versus electronic, manual transfer versus
I didn't get to that.
I think Emma is more knowledgeable than this.
Yes.
Much more knowledgeable than this. The challenge is what was being sold. Okay? This thing is not a collation mechanism.
But it was sold to Nigerians to make it look that way. It looks like once you get to the IREV, you will get
I wasn't talking about collation as being legal or not. I'm talking about what was sold.
Can I come now? What was sold was that the results will be electronically transmitted.
And people will be able to see results
and the people
on the IREV.
Who are the people?
Citizens. Every person.
Hold on. Because you need to situate this conversation in a way that it does not follow the narrative that the politicians want to put out, and educate in a way that unpacks this whole thing. And the patience to do that is what a lot of people lack. Number one, this responsibility is the responsibility of political parties.
What responsibility, sir? The IREV?
The IREV is INEC's initiative. Is its own thing that it puts to have a second level oversight.
To deepen trust. And track results. Isn't that what it was all about?
No, that's not. Listen, this thing is put there. First, if you check 2011, check 2015, you cannot find the result of any Nigerian election in the cloud.
We agree.
Researchers needed to be able to have that. Today, as we speak now, on the IREV, the 2023 election results are on the IREV. Okay? For researchers. That's number one. Yeah. Number two is that people were thinking that there will be electronic collation. And my position always is that you just referred to Ghana. I just came back from Ghana. Why was the NDC able to, the MPP, able to throw in the towel?
Yeah, even before the official announcement of results.
It was active political party agency. In terms of the ability of their party agents, and you alluded to that, their party agents had access to the results.
Yeah, but they also have their own
IREV. They have their IREV. The political parties in Nigeria should have IREV.
Their own situation room. Most of them actually have that.
For that glitch? Or
because that's what he is now saying.
Because of trust.
When we talk about trust, there are unstatistical positions that we push. Nigerians have lost trust. If when you say Nigerians have lost trust, you give an impression that there are no people who understand that there could be challenges. And that those challenges...
by saying those challenges, some Nigerians...
Yes, if we say some Nigerians have lost trust. No, if we say some Nigerians. But when we say Nigerians have lost trust, we give
Nigerians, of course.
Yes, some Nigerians... But it's not statistical because we do not have an idea of those. And many people that you refer to have no interest in even following the process the way you do. Now, the politicians...
But for once,
excuse me, the politicians... No, you see, that's what worries me. Because I follow this thing very keenly. People who are not registered voters, people who are meddlesome interlopers, people who just want to be mischievous.
All right. Well,
can take advantage of a situation that is even us as civil society. We set up mechanisms and there are glitches. And we pass it over. You know,
all right.
We want to give the impression that, you know, there's a conspiracy theory that glitch. Who do you punish?
Okay, so that's why he's asking that. Who exactly should be punished? But there's someone who's in charge of the IREF. I mean, shouldn't there be a director of the ICT?
There's a director of ICT.
And people need to see.
There were changes.
Yeah, because there were issues of getting people. Getting people from outside. I mean, the Amazons of this world who are managing the cloud services and all of that to actually, you know, do a review, a total review. Whether what INEC said is what actually happened from their own end.
Who should do that? Is the INEC that should do that?
That's why the National Assembly actually.
You can have the. That's why there is an audit process.
All right,
the National Assembly has a responsibility to audit the 2023 election and give us a report.
Okay, so we should keep that at the doorstep of the National Assembly. Well, let's talk about some of the other reforms that INEC is calling for. They are saying that they want the establishment of an electoral offences tribunal and a separate agency to handle the registration and regulation of political parties. They want more actions to be stepped up on voter access and distribution to polling units and all of that. I mean, Emma, what's your view on all of this?
Yeah, voter access, and you know, somehow disturbingly, I mean, the elections we've seen, we'll still see till date where you go to vote in some of these state elections. I don't know if it's, you know, the information, people down the ladder taking actions. Because you go to some voting units where you see people need to jump a drainage system, a gutter, for them to vote. You see places where people need to climb up to 5 flights of staircase in a primary school for them to be able to vote. And that's a challenge. That's a big challenge when you speak to access to polling units. So, I mean, is in the law, the laws are there, but I'm not sure enough is being done, you know, as in regards to the people who carry out, you know, some of these directives to ensure that these things are done. I'm not sure I got the second part of that question.
Yeah, the issue of the Electoral Offences Tribunal.
Oh yeah, Electoral Offences, and it's
holding it. I mean, we've been conversing
to Electoral
years.
Offences. Before I come to that, there's something I was going to say here. You know, after every election, we always commend Nigerian police, who is the lead agency, you know, when you speak to election security. Yeah. You know, always commend them for the orderliness, for not violence not being so much. But then, one thing, in my opinion, I think, is that for every election we go to, across all the polling units, no, not all, many of the polling units you go to across, you know, in a state or national election, you see vote buying happening right in front of security agencies. And that in itself undermines the credibility of any election.
Well, some have been arrested and we don't see them being tried in court.
No, if you look at the veracity, if you look at how much it happens, and there are security agencies, and no, in my opinion, in as much as the security and police do enough in ensuring orderliness, but so far as they sit and watch vote buying happen, they have actually undermined the point. Because truly, it's not INEC's duty to arrest people that trade votes, whether you're the vote buyer or the vote seller. The presiding officers are not trained in that. It is the sake, and that's why they are there. Not just to ensure order, but to ensure
we've
there's
seen
no
even
vote
the
buying.
EFCC entering into the...
So I do not think also that, I mean, unbundling to an extent, maybe around offenses, but when you talk about party registration and party monitoring, I completely think that it should be INEC's responsibility, in my opinion. I mean, that's what they are set up for. And I think that's critical to what they do, because you'll be able to monitor the process of the primaries for you to be able to have a credible election. All of this around voter register, registration of political parties and how they work, then election day activities, they all come together. Civil societies, accreditation of civil society. I think INEC should also do, I mean, let's also bring it home to civil societies. I also feel INEC should be able to do a lot more in profiling civil societies that go out to observe the elections, so that at the end of the day, collectively, we'll be able to have better elections than what we're having.
All right, as we try to custom very quickly, Ezenwa, Nwagwu, how soon do we think some of these reforms can be implemented ahead of 2027?
Well, I think INEC can do that which concerns it.
The administrative ones.
Part of it. But, Sambo, truth is, Justice Uwe's committee recommended what is being rehashed in this. I remember even the current chief of staff, Bajabi Amila, raised the issue of unbundling of
electoral
INEC,
offences.
Electoral offences. So the tragedy of electoral reforms is that the real violators of the election are the places we go to for reform. The politicians who constitute. So you want them to set up Electoral Offences Commission to do what? How would that? So it's not, let the people, the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, which has pulled in muzzle from everywhere, security-wise, let them do their take. And Emma has underscored that point. Your business is, there is a voting. You see, we talk about INEC budget. Nobody talks about election security budget.
Yeah.
And that budget is not with INEC. It is now with the National Security Advisor. So we should be talking about value for money. If there is violence, if there is, disruption of the process, if there is vote buying, like Emmanuel would say, we should hold somebody responsible. And the thing to do is not to outsource it to one Electoral Offences Commission, that we are hoping that the people who themselves perpetuate purveyors of the, the things that the offences should enact it for you.
All right.
That is for me a big contradiction.
All right, and I will come to you too on that, and then including some people already crying foul that the process of 2027 is already being rigged, that some politicians are being brought into INEC as national commissioners and all of that.
Yeah, all of those concerns are,
yeah.
I think they are real, they are valid, and there are some proof to show that some people who were formerly political party members or who have run for office have been appointed as INEC commissioners, whether at the federal level or at the state level. But as regards these police reforms, there has always been reforms. There has always been reforms in our elections. Like you said, Ezenwa said, after every election there are reforms. But no matter how much reforms we put in place, if we continue in this attitude of anyhowness without any consequence management systems to ensure that when people go wrong, the law goes after them, whatever reforms we put there, people will go against them and nothing will still happen, because Nigerians have realized that you can actually break the law and move on with your life. That shouldn't be so. So when you make these reforms and we go through all the stress, it's going to be very stressful on the part of INEC, civil society, all the public hearing, the media, everybody's going to be part of this. And at the end of the day, we'll have a new Electoral Act. If there's no consequence management system in place, people will still break the law and nothing will happen. Because we saw a lot of people break the law in the 2023 elections that were against the laws existing at that time. How many of them have been tried?
Well,
how many of them have been
INEC
jailed?
INEC says it's working with the NBA to actually prosecute them. And we're close to another election. We haven't seen so much. Well, so much reforms with little punishment. That's what we can say. But we just hope that INEC will begin to, ginger trust in the electoral process. Stakeholders and all of that.
Because
they
that
have to play a role.
Is the challenge.
Everybody.
The stakeholders have responsibility. Because
but of course, INEC has to lead.
No, INEC is not even the lead. It is the politicians. Funny enough, who appoints these INEC folks? We said take out your hand in the appointment. We said take out your hand in the appointment of INEC officials. Yes. You have refused to take out your hand because you are the one to make the law that should say take out your hand. Because if the National Assembly does not say, please, executive, we want a broader system that can help us to infuse trust in the independence of INEC, that will not happen. So every time it's easy to put the victim, the one who has been suppressed by the laws that is intentionally put in place, not to allow them perform.
All right, we must thank you so much. Ezenwa Nwagwu is the chairman of the Partners for Electoral Reform, and he has been helping us to understand the proposals by INEC for 142 reforms to boost Nigeria's electoral system. And of course, we also have right here Emmanuel Njoku, who is the Director of Elections at Connected Development Code. We must thank you all, gentlemen, for being here and for your immense wealth of experience and knowledge. And we just hope we'll get better with the electoral system once these reforms are put in place. But we must thank you for coming here.